Guys, welcome. A little bit late coming to you guys live from TPI. We've got a special guest with us, JJ van Wezenbeeck. Nice to see you, pal.
Great to see you again.
JJ ran myself through driver fit earlier on, so we're down here getting our first look at TSR in person. We've obviously seen some pics online, and it's been launched into the market as sort of first impressions, but today was the first time we had it in our hands and on the tee.
Yeah, I think we were able to catch up a little bit at the Scottish Open and the Open Championship, so you got to see us do a little work with some of the tour players, but it was great to see you all get your hands on it yourselves today. Yeah,
I mean, it's one thing seeing those guys and kind of obviously rolling into the new product, and they do it so seamlessly. And we're just talking off camera there about how Cam Smith ultimately put it in his bag, but a pretty cool story. He's won the Open with TSR3, but he initially was playing TSR2 at Renaissance at the Scottish. Was doing that little bit of tweaking with you, couldn't quite get the window of flight he was looking for, specifically in shape. Ended up in the 3 and got himself a claret jug.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty impressive to go. I have a driver that's going a little too straight, and just feeling like it was squaring up a little too easily. So being able to move into the R3, which he had played I3, obviously winning a Players Championship as well with it, but then to get a claret jug at a golf course like that at the 150th Open is pretty special. Very, very special.
So yeah, we all, Mikey, Mac, myself, we went through the drivers, we went through the fairway woods. We had a nice presentation with Stephanie and Tom on kind of the technical specs, which guys we're not going to get into today. That's about another month or so away, month and a half away before we really get into the embargo and on that sort of stuff. So I think we're okay to get into a little bit of some stories from the Open and your time over there. But guys, we won't be diving too deep into the technical changes.
We'll get around the edges a little bit. We'll test the waters.
We'll do what we can without giving the game away. So guys, please, as usual, ask away, be selfish. It's the live is about you guys as well. We just have the luxury of having JJ with us today, so we can get into tour a little bit. We can get into the players that you guys work with, the elite talented players and the Titleist staff that you work with, and some of the stories would be fun to hear.
Yeah, we're the #1 driver on tour, so we got a pretty breadth that we can go with. We can talk just fitting specifics, we can talk other parts of the product line, wherever we need to go.
Love it. So Mr. Boucher, the Sling King himself, is going to be throwing the questions over at us.
For starters, people are excited to see Mikey back on the channel.
Are they?
Hello friends, good to see you, or not see you.
Good to be seen.
Yeah, sure. And bear with me because I can't read, so. I know we can't talk too much about the driver, but initial thoughts for you guys heading in today.
For me,
couple words.
TSR3, as expected, I think would be my take. 2 and 4, couldn't be more impressed. Was kind of what I would take away from today, without getting into the details of the launch and spin and the other nuances of change. I think 3 would be as you would expect, and 2 and R you'd be blown away with.
Yeah, I tested TSI 3 last year, and I wouldn't say I struggled with it, I just couldn't square it up as much. And this year's driver, for me, just it suited my eye. It worked really nicely. So I'm excited to get it in the fitting bays for our customers coming through. It's a nice new line.
Well, it's a treat as well for us to be the other side of the fitting desk.
Yeah, no kidding.
And actually going through the process and with the care and attention that JJ and the team give to their tour players, it was nice for us to get that experience today as well. So it was really fun. So and the fairway woods as well. We're pretty blown away by them.
Okay, hey guys, my understanding is that the hybrids come with a slightly closed face. Anything I should alter in my swing to counteract that? I don't know if that's a generic question to all hybrids.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if that is generic, I mean, some do, some don't. There's some that, I mean, we all know the issue golfers have generally with slicing, so I mean, it's helping more than it's hurting, that's for sure. But there's tons of options out there for people who are looking for a more neutral hybrid. I mean, we go into something like TSI 3, the ability to flatten that one where the CG placement is not. I mean, it's not really looking to turn over.
Yeah, I would say ours are not built closed. I think what players get used to is that there's bulge and roll, so that towed hybrid feels like it wants to turn, which again, to your point, sure fit hosel, now I can flatten, I can open it more, or again, in that i3, if you want to make a very anti-left hybrid, to be able to go open, flat, and move that CG, you're going to have a club that isn't, you know, your father's hybrid.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and if that's been your experience with hybrids, you probably haven't been fit with it. You probably need to just go out there and dive into an environment where you can have lots of different heads to test.
Mikey's getting some serious love on here. I think everyone missed him.
Oh,
Okay.
that's a first.
That's a good one.
It's been a while since Mikey's in anyway.
More love on this than I've had on Tinder.
You think you will see gains in ball speed and overall distance with drivers in 2023, considering the fact the drivers are already pushing their max and limits? We kind of learned a lot about that today.
We're still seeing it, and the thing about it is there's speed as a component to distance, which we're seeing because our engineers aren't, you know, you spent time with Tom and Stephanie. They didn't go home when they were done with you. They went to the office. They're already what's next. So they're pushing those envelopes. And then there is normally for most players that little bit of launch, that little bit of spin you can gain. And then if you can gain any of those benefits from fitting and feel like that's what we saw with you, when we can add freedom to the swing, that adds a component for distance. When we see a tour player who's really dialed, well, if I can eliminate any fear, they get really, really long. Because they leave a lot in the tank.
Definitely.
You know, Justin Thomas has the ability to add 6 miles an hour of ball speed like that. It's when you do it, how do you do it, and how consistent we can make that flight.
100%. If you can take the fear out of someone's delivery and they know that they have no chance, like we talked a lot about, you know, my misses, especially with the fairway woods when Chris and I were getting into that. I mean, there was that right shot, I just cannot see that shot. We played yesterday over at La Costa and had 3 5-wood shots into par 5s, every single one of them fan to the right. That shot is absolutely gone from the 5-wood now after today's fit, because what I had out of that sim fairway wood was a single axis sleeve that can do nothing but move it open. So to get the desired loft, the head has to sit wide open. My miss is to the right. There's nothing I can do but that other than not play that club.
Yeah, and I think that's that combination of all those components working together and fitting clubs individually. You know, it's not get fit for one and then call it good across for everything. Is working those different components, and that's when you can just see those incremental gains throughout your bag.
Yeah, definitely. And I think back to the kind of comment on, you know, where are we relative to maxing out on performance. I mean, guys, we can't talk too much about it, but just having been through the presentation there's obviously there was a new material last year in TSI. You know, there's evolutions of that and what can be done with it down the line and things like that. So it's never one wholesale thing that will make a massive improvement. It's marginal gains. It's getting 0.5% from there, 0.2% from there, and you collect up all these, you know, marginal gains, and then you combine them all at the end, and that's where your 5 to 7 yards comes from.
Our first presentation for TS, when the start of the Titleist Speed project, Stephanie's in front of the room and her first slide has, you know, 0.4 miles an hour club. And we're all like, oh, that's not fun. And Josh is there, Talgi, you know, is all of a sudden adding stuff. He raises his hand at the end, he's like, is that the total that we're talking about? And I think that's where our R&D team does a really good job, is we're not trying to reinvent a wheel. They're trying to look under all these little facets and find those little areas, and they add up over time.
For sure.
Perfect. Okay, this one's a good one just because we were just doing some wedges, but what are the playing differences between a low bounce K versus a T grind? I like to play with an open face, but play with low flighted spinners. Which would be better?
Well, I mean, again, this is good timing. Obviously, just coming back from St Andrews, Aaron Dill had smoke coming off his shoes, coming off that truck onto the range. I mean, it was impressive. He was by far the hardest working guy on that range at the Open. I mean, he was working, Those guys looking for specific nuances of grinds and bounces, you know, trying to shave something off the heel of something to get a player just to deliver it. So I mean, he was working, wasn't he?
He is every week the busiest man in golf when 55% of the wedges in play are a Vokey, and you have such changing conditions. And I mean, at St. Andrews, how firm it was, but the unique one there was the bunkers were relatively soft.
Absolutely.
So you have soft bunkers that you have to elevate some lips, and then you have very firm conditions everywhere else. You know, the fairways were running close to 13 greenside. So on the K to the T, I'll always refer to Aaron to be more of the expert here, but your width is going to be your major difference.
Right.
So that K is going to be a lot wider. So as you open it, it's going to ride that leading edge a little bit more than a T, but it will be a little bit more effective out of the if you have soft bunkers and things like that. But if you have firm conditions everywhere, that T, which is a little bit, when you look at tour pros, how good they are in their delivery, why you see the T so popular out there.
Absolutely. They can control that strike point, that low point so precisely that they can use that. That T's not for everyone.
Exactly. And so what we've seen is an increase in bounce in the 56 and that decrease in bounce in the 60. So you get a grainy situation, you go to a higher bounce 56, and then you have that low bounce T because they're so good at that delivery. So if you guys hit T's over there, you'll see when it's good, it's really, really good.
Yeah.
If you're not great, there's no training wheels on it.
No, I love that.
Shout out to Joey at TPI. He's the one that fit me today, actually.
Nice.
It was
Poor man.
a lot of fun with Joey.
Poor man.
Poor man is right. Okay, yeah. Some people say shafts can't be that important if they're effectively outsourced and not developed in-house. How would you answer this? How closely do you work with shaft manufacturers?
So we at Titleist have an entire team devoted to just shafts. The shaft manufacturers come into our office regularly. When you look at our featured shafts lineup, they're not random choices. They're very specific window characteristics in terms of launch and spin, weight, flex, things like that. So you'll see, you even hit one of our new featured shafts that you'll see this fall that is being launched by that manufacturer with us, because we were a very big component of saying we wanted a certain characteristic in the lineup. So we work with them a lot in things that they want, and then they present a lot of, hey, here's where we're trying to go with stuff. And you guys, I'm sure, see it with your fitting bays, just kind of, they can matter a lot.
They absolutely can matter a lot, and I think that the thing with shafts is it's not always predictable. It's not always. I mean, there's a lot of different nuances to how you load the shaft, the way you feel the shaft, the way the shaft contributes to the whole system of the golf club, and how the player feels that. So it's not always going to do what the manual says that it should do. So that's when getting into the nuts and bolts of the fit itself is when you see launch windows and you see how a player's reacting to the timing of the shaft and how you load it, then you've at least got a baseline to go and work off of that. And I think that's where you guys do such a nice job of the shaft offerings. They're very diverse, right? So there's always a little bit of something in there. Again, having a new sneak peek at what you guys are rolling out for TSR. There's something in there for everyone.
Yeah, and I think, we were talking about earlier today, we've had players that tell me the club weighs different because of the flex of the shaft.
That's a good little story, actually.
This was Jeff Ogilvy back in the day. When he gets a shaft that's really stout, he feels it being lighter because he has that kind of old school laggy swing. So at transition, if the shaft doesn't load, he can't feel that shaft, so it feels light. So it doesn't matter how heavy you go. If it's really stiff, it feels light. And then you give him, pretty soft X and 70 grams. Like, yeah, that has weight because he can feel it flex. So it's always unique to the player. It's a benefit I get as a tour fitter is I've been fitting Justin Thomas since he was 19 years old. So you kind of can get to your answer quicker because you've done and you know their preferences on feels and things like that and shafts. And then we can do so much with the head that I can kind of take those out sometimes as well.
Very cool.
I actually asked this question earlier, but can anyone come to TPI and get fit here? From the public?
It's open to the public. Whether you want to do just a metal woods, you want to do a full bag fitting, you want to see Bob Vokey himself, all those are available options.
go. New intro song is great. F the haters.
Amen.
There
F
we
the
go.
haters.
Amen.
Couldn't agree more.
Sorry, slow reader here. What does the R stand for in TSR?
Coming soon. I'm sure that will be in your
Yeah.
media embargo
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, coming soon. Really good.
Ian
Really
did get his
good.
clubs back, yes.
Yes. Twice.
Big baby.
Where'd they get lost?
Atlanta.
Wow.
Here's one
Yeah.
from Mikey.
Oh boy, here we go.
What's Mikey's favorite Titleist product? Not including wedges. Driver, fairway woods, hybrid.
Not including
irons.
wedges.
Which ones?
All of it. It's all good. No, the driver. I'm excited for that driver.
I don't know, the wedge I saw you hitting earlier.
Yeah, I know. My wedges are set. I like a bulky wedge. I always have. But no, all the product's good.
What driver did you think?
TSR 3.
Spec.
Think about that for a second.
Spec. 8 degree.
8 degree. H1 in the weight. With Graphite Design UB6S.
And he only hit 8 golf balls and it's
Yeah.
sold.
Fastest fit in California.
What was the main focus for the TSR line in terms of anything you guys really want to improve on from the original line? You probably can't say much.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it and see if I get yelled at. But
Yeah.
it's always an interesting meeting because take TSI 3, it was the most popular driver on tour. So how do you make it better? Well, I don't want the spin to get too knuckly. Don't want the shape to change much.
Yeah.
The feel is very important. So I always just ask for faster.
Yeah.
Don't change anything, just make it faster.
Right.
What if we did this, this, and this? Nope, none of that, just faster. So Stephanie and team always gets a big challenge in the meat of ours is how do you make it faster but keep all these other parts really clean, classic, from look, sound, feel, and everything else. So it is always the biggest thing we ask for tour players is if everything else stays the same but we get faster, so keep it really good looking, keep it faster, and we're pretty happy.
Perfect. I saw, this is kind of my own question based on somebody else's assumption earlier, was saying that no one's going to use it unless they're paid, but I can say that Titleist is the most played driver on the tour now, and from guys who aren't sponsored by Titleist.
There's many, including major champion winners, that aren't paid at all by Titleist to play the driver. So,
well, and we can also share at retail level. By far, over the last 18 months, we've sold more Titleist drivers than anything else, and it's not even close.
There we go. If you wanted a 55-degree wedge, why would you go 54 bent weak to 55 bent or? No, there's a
54
can I buy
to
a vowel?
55? Yeah.
trying to get to an odd number.
If you wanted a 55-degree wedge, why would you go 54 bent weak versus 55 bent strong?
So you're changing bounce first and foremost, right? So like my wedges are 50, 47, 52, 57, 62. So 62 was achieved by going 60.04. I never wanted to play it as low bounce as 04, but 6 was right in the wheelhouse, and I knew I wanted a little bit more loft. So 60.04 was perfect to get me at 62.06. So just really wherever you want the kind of final spec to be. There can be a little nuance to how you like it to look and sit. I mean, I always like to add a little bit of loft just from a visual perspective, just to see a little less offset.
Yeah, it's going to be that 1-to-1. 1 degree weak is adding degree bounce. 1 degree strong is removing degree bounce. So in a stock setup at a 54 to 56, you have a little of that offset change, but really if you focus on the bounce characteristic, whether you want a little more or want a little less.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we've touched on this a bit, but can you elaborate on why you focus so much on peak height during an iron fitting? And that's kind of your big focus.
Yeah, I mean, launch and spin is great to isolate and obviously, work on that. If you focus on peak height as a goal, the others fall into place anyway, right? So you can be wrestling with a degree here or a couple hundred RPMs there, but as you're wrestling towards the spin, the launch is not coming with you. if you reach the goal on height, they both come with you. So it's the way of getting the 3 metrics that need to be achieved in order to hit your right ball flight, which is speed, launch and spin. If you hit those, you're going to hit the right apex. So if you just go straight to the apex, you get the other 3 for free.
Perfect. So I fit the exact same way.
Is that right?
It's just easy.
Put it into the window and...
Well, when we work with a collegiate player that is turning pro, they have a window they live in.
Yeah.
Take a Patrick Cantlay. When he turned pro, he was a 90-foot player, and first time playing next to Rory, who's a 120 player, he's handling par 5s different. So we moved him from 90 to 95 to 100. He's at 105 now. But it's just an easy way to explain launch spin speed in 1 metric.
Exactly.
One for you, Ian. Does the R stand for Rangers?
Yes. The best.
How does swing weight versus static weight affect club hits?
We had a cool chat about Webb Simpson earlier, didn't we, about Webb's kind of preference for a high swing weight but not a high total weight from some of the things he likes to feel and see when he was chasing some speed.
Yeah, and I think that's a balance, and there's a biomechanic portion with, I always, when you're explaining to a player on anything, I like to explain extremes. So if I gave you an alignment stick and said swing it really fast, or a sledgehammer, which muscles are you engaging?
Right.
So you're gonna have to put a lot of force into the ground and everything else swinging the sledgehammer versus the alignment stick, but it doesn't mean you swung the sledgehammer faster. So let's find you a weight between an alignment stick and a sledgehammer. So I think that biomechanic force is that total weight, and then there's a feel component. At the end of the day, swing weight is made up. It is a component that sometimes you can get hung up on, but it affects other things with the way the shaft loads. But like you talked about with shaft, I can't tell you what the golf club feels. I'll hit none of those 14. So if you said it feels heavy or feels light, that swing weight component is an easy way to kind of modify that, and it's one of those things why we have adjustable head weight in our metal woods, because it's a quick way on the tee to get us some mass if we can handle it, and then see where it drops off. With like a TSI 1, be able to work the other side for a player to create speed.
Definitely. Like there's some great benefits to increasing head weight. Obviously we know what comes along with it. It ups the MOI, it ups the ball speed, but there's a point where you're going to get diminishing returns on your delivery at the point where you make it too heavy. So you can't just pour a load of weight into it and expect it to still perform at a high level. You're going to go up the mountain and then you're going to fall down the mountain at the point where you fall the wrong side of the weight.
100%.
John is asking, he says, I currently play a Project X60, lose it left more often, did a free fitting event and they put me in a DG 105 X1s. Stated stiffer profile helped go less left. Is this correct?
But did it? I would ask him, did it?
Yeah,
I mean, it's one of those things, like, that can be a theory that, would work or wouldn't. So obviously, rather than use the weight, I mean, two entirely different profiles. When Project X stiff the whole length of the beam, dynamic goal stiff at the tip section, soft on the handle, can influence the delivery. I mean, I would ask him back to tell us that if it worked.
Working, then it's working.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, as a fitter, you're always gonna try things, right? You're gonna try and figure the player out, what keys into the nuances of their timing. And that might be having a slightly smoother butt section that allows them to be a little bit softer in transition rather than feeling it's really stiff that they have to go after it. Those little milliseconds buy you all the time in the world to square the face and have it in the right place.
iGolf says, fit for 2.5 degrees flat irons at TXG with 3.5 flat with wedges be recommended instead of seeing the wedges.
Could be.
Yeah, again, I would say get fit, right?
Get fit. I mean, I think that's not an unusual scenario, right? To have 2.5 flat on the irons and go a little bit flatter on the wedges. I wouldn't recommend it on all the wedges. I mean, the likelihood is gap wedge is probably going to map more to what the iron set is. You might want to have the sand and the lob a little bit flatter than that, but also maybe not. It just depends. What do you see with the players out there?
Yeah, I mean, it'll a little bit depend on ball flight. You have some players that the worst miss is that short right one.
Yeah.
So they'll actually bump it a half degree up.
Interesting. Because they just don't want that weak one.
They don't want that
falls
weak
short
one because
right.
they know they'll be able to kind of flight that kind of lower fade into a pin.
Interesting.
And so, you know, if they're 64 lob, they might be 64 and a half sand.
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously finding the right grind that where they set the handle. You know, am I setting up with a 56 standard?
Yeah.
But when I get to the 60, am I lowering that handle and hitting other shots? And how does that? And I think, you know, for me as a fitter, 3-wood hardest club. Second, it's going to be lob wedge because they hit so many shots.
Yeah, the versatility has to be up there. I mean, Mikey had a real treat today. You were fitted by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Volke himself, and that was one of the elements where we kind of, once the wedge was established, he still wasn't happy.
No.
Right? So he got the loft, he got the grind where he wanted it, launch and spin were perfect, and he still was giving me the nudge, go, still going left.
Yeah.
Right? He was desperate to get that wedge into loft my machine and flatten it for you because you were missing a little bit to the left.
I mean, even talking to Gareth Orflewski a couple times, he told me he, you know, bent someone's lob wedge 5 degrees flat, and it really changed
Yeah,
their,
his is
you know,
58. I had his the other day.
Yeah. And
Short and 58
and I've done
with a
that.
graphite shaft, so the thing just does that.
Yeah, I've done that for the last couple of years. You know, my 60 right now is a couple degrees flatter already than the rest of the set. And Short Game Chef, I watch a lot of his stuff and get the hands a little bit lower, so the flatter the wedge definitely helps around.
We've got some content coming with him soon. Yeah, I'm connected with him the other day, and we're going to get together with him for sure.
I love
You
this
doing the
stuff.
Hawaii trip?
No,
Apart from
wish.
McLaughlin.
Yeah,
So good.
yeah.
He was just here 2 days ago.
Oh, was he?
Yep.
Yeah, so he messaged on something we'd done the other day, and I shot the message back just saying, look, I love what you're doing with your channel, and I said, like, you absolutely love it, follow it, and stuff like that. It's like, we'd love to get together with you in the channel. He's like, anytime, let's do it. That'll be fun.
Has he done the flight lines with you?
No.
He's done a lot of videos on his Instagram. It's the only thing I kick myself for not getting the flight lines on my wedge this year. Yeah.
Is the goal on an iron fit to be 0 degree toe down at impact?
Only if it matches your your intended ball flight, right? So, I mean, you know, I think that's something that, you know, indoors working with GC Quad, I think we get into that a lot in terms of dynamic lie angle, making sure that the lie angle helps you with the start line and gets the curvature we want, but it doesn't always have to zero out, does it?
You know, I think I always, on questions like this, break it down to what is the goal of a fitting period?
Yeah.
And it's either to make the game more fun or shoot lower scores. So of all the numbers, those are the actual goals. So it's not to get 14, 2200, it's not to get a 0, it is to what's going to make you shoot a lower score, which for most golfers is more fun. So for me, working with tour players, it is that preferred ball flight, that preferred height, descent angle, matching yardages, being able to hit the shots they want to hit. So that is always going to trump any of the data set that I get.
I would say that the part of today's fit, after obviously hitting the new product that I was most excited with, was thinking about, after playing with Josh yesterday, actually having the ability to separate face angle and lie angle. Right, so knowing that today when we get into that fairway would fit, that I would be able to get the loft exactly where we wanted, but could just tick that lie angle up a little bit in order to not miss it to the right. So that for me was just in my head all last night. I just had that rightness, and that was the thing I was most looking forward to.
Yeah, I think when you look at Titleist woods, what is one component, since, you know, for however many generations we are now, since 913.
Yeah,
910 that we haven't changed. It's sure fit hosel, and it's the one thing that we say this is as good as it gets, because even when I look at the chart, you know, I worked on tour when we bent titanium in metal woods, so I just think of it like bending an iron to get what you want, and it's very versatile in a fitting.
Yeah, that really helps.
Which tour players are very knowledgeable in their clubs being fit? Does anyone make it easier or harder to fit them? Is there anyone that's like really knows what they want?
I'd say a lot of them know what they want, not in terms of shaft or spec, but they've hit a lot of golf balls. So in terms of height, you know, Jordan Spieth is impressive in, he will tell you within a dimple where he hit it on the face.
Really?
And I mean, we'll take GC quad or TrackMan off, I'll use it. We didn't use it today, but I'll use a paint pen and put it in the dimple. He will tell you immediately post impact within a dimple on the face where he was on any club in the bag. And he's very in tune to feel and look and sound and what the flight is. And he hits enough on both quad and TrackMan. He runs both when he hits that we actually had a concerning issue with him earlier this year where one of his units got damaged in travel but he didn't know, and he was concerned about some spin numbers, and we found out something had kind of got thrown off in the unit. And so we ran 4 simultaneous launch monitors to prove to him that the numbers were good, just to lock in his confidence. So I'd say he's pretty in tune with his numbers, not how he gets there. He puts a lot of trust in us on the how, but knowing an exact yardage he wants to carry, getting the impact exactly where he wants it, and getting all the other parts of it.
I would say, of all the players, kind of standing with him, watching him and working at it, he was really impressive with his wedges in the Open. And he was really hitting it nicely. I mean, he was actually hitting next to Scotty Scheffler. Like, it was actually quite dramatic how much better. I mean, I know Scheffler was unbelievable with the short game. He won the Masters with the short game. But like Jordan's wedge game was unbelievable.
I think you'd be amazed if you watched a session with him how much shape he tries to put on a wedge. He is not hitting it. Every tour player can hit it 56. It's how do I hit it with 56? Am I hitting it with a lower spin, higher spin? Am I shaping it right or left? And you hear Vogt talk about Torino with the 9 different ball flights, and Jordan will do that with a wedge, and it allows him at a course like St. Andrews that's so undulating around the greens to allow the golf course to get him into areas really, really well.
That's awesome.
If anyone is feeling like they're getting stuck in the ground with some irons, would you want to move them to a more smaller sole or thicker sole if they're getting stuck in the ground?
I mean, there can be a bunch of different reasons why they're getting stuck in the ground. I mean, I would kind of start there. Obviously choosing a different sole is going to could just be purely a band-aid for something that needs to be fixed. So I would love to see that, what it is that's causing that to happen. Whether there's a sequence issue and they're just overly steep with it, and really getting into something with a wider sole is not really helping the long-term benefits or long-term performance for the player. Do you see that with players who kind of give you that feedback, like can't quite get the sole through the turf? And
yeah, I mean, it can even come to length. We get some of our top amateurs who got quote unquote fit as a kid is, hey, you're tall, you should play long. Right. And they have really long arms, but they're tall, they're 6'2", 6'3", but really long arms, and they're plus an inch sometimes, and they're like, it gets stuck. And you give them standard length, and that club just cleans up, and the impact goes, and they lose early extension, and it solves everything. Right. So it's a balance between where that launch condition is, why they're doing it, and like you said, there's a lot of factors to it. So it's pretty broad to say, hey, just make more bounce, make more effective bounce, and it'll solve everything. Where sometimes it's a lot easier than that. You can just shorten the golf club or get the lie a little different or lighten things up to make it easier for them to live, or but a lot of times that stuck in the ground, I'll find the half long X1 player that can just drop a little weight, drop a little length, and it solves it all. I
think we still get that a lot. Taller players come in and they take a look at the wall and they go, you guys haven't got anything long enough for me. And it'll be like, okay, let's wait and see. And by the end of it, they've had plenty of shafts to try. Their ball flight's great, and there's lots in there for them. But not trying to just almost dictate the way the fit's going to go before you've even struck a ball based on someone's static measurements.
Yeah, and I think that's what we find over the years is some well-concerning parent or something just they're long, I'm gonna order long. And it's amazing when you look at kinematic sequence with the TPI guys, and length can solve early extension even. And they're making room for a golf club. Again, I always find it easier to think of an extreme. If I gave you a 2-inch long golf club, you're gonna make room versus I gave you a 2-inch short golf club, you're really going to have to stay in it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's the perfect fit, but if you kind of show the extremes to a player, they can start to see it.
We were working through that a little bit in the fit today, weren't we, with length. I mean, my driver's 45.5, and we could see a little bit of the two-way miss coming from having to kind of back out it a little bit in order to accommodate the length, and going a little bit shorter. We talked about trying to kind of, you know, stay on top of it a little bit more and get that angle attack from, you know, 4.5 down to 2.3, and just control that kind of launch window a little bit better, and it was much better.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing we saw from you is, you know, while we were working on a golf club, you'd hit a couple iron shots and it'd be really good, and then you'd pick up the 45.5, and the first one left, second one right, and then the shot 3 and 4 are really good. But you know, if you're hitting 3 and 4 off the tee on the golf course, you're a little bit in trouble.
Yeah, you can't calibrate off that.
Ryan says, Mac, you can read. Trust the process. See, think, and speak. You got this.
Real good at the reading.
Can't read it.
Should I transition from strong lofted irons to standard lofts as my game improves?
Yeah. What do you think of the strong loft debate and kind of seeing players and, you know, working on these modern 100S lofts versus 100s versus, you know, the weaker loft of the blades?
At the end of the day, a player is going to deliver the loft they deliver at impact.
Right.
And so, like, a perfect example for me would be a Max Homa.
Mm-hmm.
Turns pro, he is blades the whole way.
Yeah.
You know, playing on tours where the greens weren't as firm, he's like, I'm a blades guy.
Yeah.
And then he came out here for a fitting after working with Mark Blackburn, made some pretty dramatic swing changes in his delivery pattern and how he delivered the loft, where all of a sudden at the long part of his bag, he just sees things dropping. So for him, what we were able to do in a gapping situation was to put him in a 100S 4-iron, a little bit weak. So we got the benefits of the speed channel and getting a little ball speed, getting a little launch, and then played that for a couple of weeks, and is like, I've hit some of the best 4-irons of my life. What can we do in the 5? So we tried a 100S 5-iron, and it was too far. So we go to 100 and then go to his blades. So it's a little bit how the club performs, a little bit how you deliver the loft. I will say we typically find better players do a really good job of delivering a little less loft rather than throwing it. We had Danielle Kang out here yesterday. You know, she's getting where she's an 8-degree driver, used to hit up on an 8. Now she's up 5.
Okay.
And so she's like, yeah, it's falling out of the air. So now we're matching swing changes. So tried SureFit Hosel first and then moved to a 9-degree driver to be able to kind of let her deliver it how she wants to now.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of nuances in what is making someone a better player as well, right? So, you know, that can be time spent in the short game area, so the delivery of the irons can be, you know, the same as it was before, but ultimately we're looking for a dynamic loft number. It's an impact number we're looking for that's going to really dictate whether they're in the right window or not. So, you know, as a fitter, somebody who's kind of swinging out to in and adding dynamic loft, that's the only way we can get obviously a proper amount of distance out is to utilize some stronger lofts and faster faces.
Yeah, I keep asking Josh to take all the numbers off the bottom and let us put them on after. But I mean, that's really the thing, is that there's a reason, you know, at Titleist we have so many different models, is because there just isn't, the lanes are a little too narrow. That we have to have 100 and 100S. We have to have CB and 200 and 300. So all those components, and again, it's why we're up to just shy of 85% of our tour players play with more than one model. Because what might work at the bottom end, it might not work at the middle or the longer end.
I think that might be one of the most impactful pieces of information from today's live, is that 85% of your tour players mix the models within the Titleist brand. I
mean, the best ball striker on tour, and Justin Thomas is in 2 models. He's in a T104 and then blades down. Max Homa in a 100S, 100 and 620 MB. So, you know, you have all those players that, again, I don't want Max Homa to swing different. I want Mark Blackburn to get him dialed in and let me handle the up down. So we joke that Mark's in charge of left right. Joe is in charge of long short, and I'm in charge of up down. Max just gets to play golf.
Are Vokies easily bent to 3.5 flat?
Very.
Yes.
Quite easily bent.
Very.
What would the limit be before risking breakage?
Or part 2.
I mean, I have an old SM6 at home that's 5.5 degrees flat, and it's not broken. So
I think we made Voke an 80-degree wedge once for his 80th birthday, but I think the limit from production is 4 degrees for us.
Yeah, any more than that, and you're running the risk of fracture and you know, get into that possibility.
And you probably shouldn't be much more than 4 degrees flat.
Absolutely.
I have twin boys who've just turned 12, already 5'10", 150 pounds, and are just starting to swing a club. Since they're growing so fast, what is a good starter club to get them in?
what are you feeding? your
Good luck with
children?
that. I mean, oh,
At 12? You're way more than me.
I mean, I would say there's that's true actually. There
Like
are.
a bag of milk.
I mean, the parent is in a tough spot there, right? So I mean, that those kids are, if they're that height and weight at that age, I mean, they're going to be changing so fast. So honestly, the best advice I could give is just get comfortable with a fitter who can monitor them quarterly, right? If it can't be every 6 months, I would try to work with a fitter quarterly, just to keep making sure lies are appropriate, lengths are appropriate, and just make sure you're monitoring their change. Because you know, I saw kids pre-COVID, post-COVID, and they've went from 5'1" to 6 foot in their club head speed. We monitored them last time at 87, and they're now 105. You know, they can change so fast, can't they?
I mean, and it's impressive watching some, you know, we look out the window here and you'll see, you know, juniors and then go to college and what that changes. And I'd say that was your best piece of advice there, is find the fitter that is going to help you monitor that situation. Is if you go to 4 different fitters over 2 years, it's going to cause confusion. So find a place you're comfortable, find a place like TXG that you can potentially modify the equipment rather than start over. Of, hey, we can reshaft those.
Yeah.
Those iron heads are going to last us another year. We won't start over. We have an interchangeable head with a sure fit hosel where, hey, we can just drop some loft off it.
Yeah.
We can pop a different shaft in it, and let that grow with your kid.
Yeah, like one of the programs that we have that we sympathize with parents that are in such a tough spot. Golf's expensive enough. Is whatever they buy for their kids first, the likelihood is they're out the shafts before the heads, so the next set of shafts are 50% off. Something that at least gives the parent a break on that, to the point where they're not back in their pocket for too much.
This one might be kind of self-explanatory, but biggest difference between T100 and T200 in construction and forgiveness. My brother and I got fit into these and were surprised with who fit into what.
So that's kind of a leap, because you have, you know, a T100 is a solid body construction and a supported face versus an unsupported face in the middle and long irons on a T200. So you have a little bit of that, and then you have a little bit of that sole width. But that face construction and sole width will be kind of the dramatic changes versus that 100S kind of slotted between the two in terms of performance. But, you know, it's why on tour with that unsupported face, it works great at going far and launching high, which is why we see it as the #1 utility on tour.
Yeah.
But for a tour player to launch a high, far 7-iron isn't always in their wheelhouse. But for an amateur to go, yep, that 7-iron is going to carry that pond when I toe it or heel it,
Yeah.
a lot of times that's a really nice feeling.
Well, you know, something that I got the benefit of today was Josh had mentioned to Chris today that I wasn't hitting my long irons very well yesterday. So that transition, as we went through the fairway woods, we were going to have a problem, because we were kind of getting this, you know, performance from the fairway woods, and this forearm was kind of out at sea. And at the end of the fit, he ran it through the back and grabbed a couple of, actually a 4 and a 3 iron bent to the same loft, 2 different shafts. And you know, having worked through the fit with the fairway woods, he had a number in mind of a ball speed number, a flight window like we talked about, and he's like, okay, one of these clubs is going to hit this window because that one you've got right now doesn't. And sure enough, we found the exact one, so we could kind of keep the balance and blend. The good work we had done with the fairway woods and the driver wasn't going to lead to a problem as we transitioned to the irons.
Yeah, and that in your specific case, it's an area we spend more time on tour than any other spot. Longest iron, shortest fairway wood is, as players' ball speeds get higher, your lob wedge probably, you know, as you've been adding some speed,
Yeah.
probably doesn't go much farther than when before you had the speed.
No.
So you have this anchor point and you have this driver going farther. It's, you still get the same number of clubs in between. So you have these 11 spots and these 11 tools that you have to come up with. But that's part of why we've seen that utility build, which is where you ended up with today with some graphite in that 4.
Yeah.
Because, okay, there's that par 5 where 5 wood might be a little much. And now instead of getting cute, you feel like you can stretch it.
Yeah.
And then there's that par 3 where, God, does 5 get there? Where,
Yeah.
okay, I can just smooth this forward and it's going to carry. So having that versatility in that club, and we've kind of pivoted off 200 versus 100, but there'll be a little bit of that soul and that construction and the launch window difference.
Yeah.
It's good you figured that out, because he's had more 4-irons this year than he has sets of clubs, and that's a lot of 4-irons. I don't have to hear us complaining anymore.
Okay. In your opinions, who has a better golf swing, Nelly Korda or Jordan Spieth? Comparing apples and oranges. Nelly
I
Korda's
think
golf
Nelly
swing
golf
is
swing.
extreme.
I think Nelly's
yeah.
golf swing might
Like, it's
be
probably the best in the game.
as good as good as there is. Never
We-
mind men's
Any-
game, women's game, the
No,
game.
yeah, sure, golf swing.
I mean, we saw it the first time. We honestly thought TrackMan was broken the first time she came out.
Just kept spitting out the same numbers.
I mean, within,
yeah.
I'm talking within 50 RPMs, over and over again, within tenths of launch. And she's talking while she's doing it, and not just warming up. I mean, it is impressive.
At what handicap should someone wait before considering getting a fitting? You always say get it fit right off the start.
Yeah, just get fit.
Yeah,
Just get
you
fit.
got to get fit straight away. I mean, there's many layers and levels to what constitutes a fitting, right? So that could be you've never hit a ball in your life, but we're going to get you into clubs that do not hinder your development in the game. We're going to get you into the right grip size, the right weight, the right head style, the right set composition. You know, probably if you're just starting out, we're probably not going to load you up with 14 straight away. You probably don't need it, but we'll leave spaces for other clubs to fit into the gaps. So yeah, everywhere from a tour pro to somebody who's never touched a club.
Right. Okay, let's do one more here. It's been about an hour
For sure.
and my eyes hurt. Regarding most tour
Perfect.
players playing multiple irons, what is the furthest you've gone blending a set? Anyone being fit for T100, 200, 300, 400 all at once, or is the difference too great?
I think it was Pat and Kazire was 620 MB, 620 CB, T1, T2. I think you have 4 models is the most I've had in a bag.
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's beaten that.
No,
4
worth a
models.
We talked about when Jordan hit all, you know, during a commercial shoot, we'll have guys hit all the models.
Yeah.
Or I guess Max Homewood would be the perfect example in our current lineup. So we made 7-irons all to his same spec. The only difference was loft.
Right.
So we did stock lofts, and he joked he could play just 7-irons.
Right.
From MB to CB to T1 to
Yeah.
100S to 200 to 300. By the time he's hitting 300s, he's just, the camera stuff was hilarious because he's just laughing.
Yeah.
Because he's got a 7-iron that's carrying 40 yards farther than his gamer at the same
Yeah.
length and same shaft. So it was very comical that Max, we might build him a 7-iron only set.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. You guys want to wrap it up?
Very cool. Guys, I mean, that was different format. Obviously, having JJ with us was a real treat. It was great to hear some of the tour stories and kind of some of the differences in the needs of the best players in the world. I mean, we obviously see, our customers, and that range of skill set really changes day to day. But you're working with Jordan and Justin and Cam and all these guys. I mean, it's the best of the best.
Yeah, I think what we see is in the driver world, their wants aren't that different. I want it long and straight. In the iron world, I want that consistent distance. I want a good descent angle. They might have a little more skill with wedges and things like that.
Yep.
Or is why we offer so many grinds in a wedge to be able to fit that width of player, and why we have that width of head types in our irons, and why we have 3 different models in our driver in TSR right now, is that the wants are, and how we get there might be a little bit different.
Right.
But we're all golfers trying to
The
get better,
ultimate goal is to get better.
and I think
Yeah.
that's that thing when they get lost in the numbers on the screen. Remember, we're just trying to all play better.
Totally. That's the name of the game. It doesn't have to, back to the lie angle. Does it, is a zeroed out lie angle the best lie angle? No. The one that helps you score the lowest score is the right lie angle. So, no, it's been a blast.
Thanks.
AJ, thanks, pal.
Appreciate having
Really
me.
appreciate
AJ,
all your
thanks.
time today. Thanks to the whole team at Titleist for having us, hosting us at TPI. I think it's safe to say, this is the best facility in the world for coming and improving your game. Whether you want to be focused on your body with Greg over in TPI, whether it's with the team on the wedges, whether it's with Scotty, whether it's with JJ and the team, you're literally going to find the best people to help you with every single part of your game in one facility.
And it's a pretty good playground to be around.
Yeah, it really is. Guys, we'll be back in the studio next Monday. Stay tuned. We'll see you again soon.